Let me tell you about a new album by Jethro Tull. People are saying it's a return to form by a favourite band. I've listened to it twice, and it seems very nice, and I want to tell you about it on this video today. So sit down and I'll tell you about the new album by Jethro Tull. I'm trying to do an impression of Ian Anderson, but I think I sound a little bit like Buddy. A little bit like Buddy Holly. Why have I just done that? Well, because I wanted to make the point. Can I put the camera in a better position? So yeah, let's try that. I wanted to make the point that there's a style of music, and it's the Jethro Tull style of music. And I've just done it. I did, as you could probably tell, I've just made that up on the spot. I didn't even spend any time to work it out. I literally picked the guitar up. I could hear the C chord dropping down to the B flat chord, which creates a sort of Mixolydian sound, and that sort of sound is suffuses with sort of modal folk sound, but it's still in sort of a song based mode, you know. And I extended some of the chords out for longer than I could have put it in 7. I could have gone. We're gonna play a song in 7/8 today. So there's cliches, and all music's like this, and you have to take your hat off to Jethro Tull because they have invented a genre. This is genius. If you could, you know, how many of us have created a music style that I could come on here and instantly, you know, copy just by doing a few things, and it's them, right? And we all love it. And some of us love it so much that we welcome a new album that takes us back to the glory days of Jethro Tull in the 1970s. And with this new album, which is called something Ruminant, I have been working on this all morning. And I've studied it so much, I got all my notes together, I can't even remember the bloody title of the album. What the hell's it called? Oh. And I'd improvised the song well as well. I can't start again. Hang on. Are you still there? I'm back. It's called Curious Ruminant. Came out on March the 7th last week. It's just come out. Right? Oh, God. So, as you can tell, I'm not that interested by this new album. I never am. Right? I'm not that type of person. But a lot of you are. Right? And I've listened to it and I enjoyed it. So I'm going to tell you what I think of this new album. And I'm also going to tell you how it fits in to the sort of the prog landscape, because this is going to come up as an album of the year, a lot like John Anderson's True. There's an album where I remember the name, which I absolutely love. And I like this album. I didn't like it as much as the John Anderson album. So we've got Ian Anderson. And he, like John Anderson, basically embodies his band, Jethro Tull. Doesn't matter about the other players. If you haven't got Ian Anderson up front, standing on one leg, singing in that signature voice and playing the flute with that beautiful flute tone that he has. Then you haven't got Jethro Tull. And that's what we're dealing with here. And I think he's carrying the Jethro Tull name and legacy, and he's done it proud. It sounds like Jethro Tull. It's really great. So I'm going to give you all the positive stuff, but I've got some negative stuff. So I put the album on, listened to it twice, right? It's started up and I went, oh, I like this. Sounds like Jethro Tull. Proper Jethro Tull. A lot of more flute playing. And obviously, Ian Anderson's voice, unlike John Anderson's, is a shadow of its former self. And I thought that would be the main topic of conversation about this album. But it wasn't, because Ian Anderson still has the tone and the delivery and the phrasing. And he has written a set of songs here, which is much down in his range. He sings great. His lyrics are there. It's all there, including the experience of a man who has lived his music for a lifetime and knows how to deliver a song. It's a little bit like Billie Holiday at the end of her career, when she couldn't really hit the notes anymore, but still was incredible because she got the phrasing. And Ian Anderson's phrasing is wonderful, so I thought he did a great job. And he still wants to get out and play, he still wants to do it. And so, in a world where he probably can't sing a set full of the old songs that everybody loves, it's a really good idea to get some new albums out that sound like that, that do a similar thing, that have a vocal range, you know, that he can sing in and we can go listen to these songs. And if you like the sound of Jethro Tull, you will like this album. It's done absolutely wonderful. But another thing I really enjoyed about it is I'm pretty sure a track started off, it got real drumming on it, real playing on it. It wasn't like overdone with loads of effects. And I do believe one of the songs slightly slowed down at one point. And at that point, my ears went, wow, this sounds like a band, and we haven't heard this for ages. I don't know how they made this album. I don't know if they even did the incredible thing of all playing at the same time in the same room. Can you imagine that? Right, and this was elevated. I felt like I was listening to a band beautifully recorded. And so what I'm getting is like new Jethro Tull songs. And Ian Anderson's the guy, he writes the songs. They sound amazing. He's got a good band behind him. Right, it's played well, it's produced well, it's got a great cover. There's a conceptual aspect to it that I didn't quite pick up on, but I feel that it's about it's not Jethro Tull in the 1970s, because he's ruminating on the present, you know, sort of climate. And towards the end, there's a great long 16-minute epic where he starts to sing over and over again. It's really interesting. It's a good epic as well. It's subtly done. I really enjoyed it. Where he sings "We All Drink from the Same Well," and I enjoyed that very much, and the sentiment of that. And also, with his flute playing, at one point, it sort of goes off into the realm of more Indian music, and you suddenly realise how close Jethro Tull is at with the flute sound. And so I think he is making a very positive point about us all trying to get on. So he hasn't gone down the Van Morrison route of turning into a far-right type. And I enjoyed that. And I thought he's made a good album. I like the conceptual aspects to it. So this is a really great album. It's in the progressive rock world, it's going to be making the top 10s of the albums out this year. Of course, in the background of my video, I'll show you. I'll go and get it, because I've actually got a copy of this. I don't think I'm going to be getting a copy of the Jethro Tull album. So we have this dilemma. Right, for me, so far, in March, the greatest progressive rock album of the year, and the one that I think is going to be on my top albums of the year, is this one, Henge. And I'm pushing this album because this here, Henge, is a proper modern progressive rock album. It does what progressive rock should do. It's not nostalgic. This is a cool band, right? They take in influences of dance music and drum and bass, jazz fusion, prog. It's conceptual. And this album's incredible. And for you proggers out there that don't know whether you want to buy this, right? This album has got two ends. So when you turn on to side 2, there's 2 grooves on side 2. And every time you put it on, it'll be one ending or the other. That is about as prog as it gets. This is proper prog. What's Jethro Tull? Jethro Tull, this is a tribute to the 1970s, isn't it? And that's the problem I have, and I don't know how to... I don't know which side I come on to. So this is why I decided to do this video, because I wasn't going to review it. But I thought I I saw Scott Dude looks like a lady over at the Prog corner. I saw him doing a review of it this morning. And I think, well, he always copies me, so I'll copy him. And that's what made me listen to the album. And then I thought, I ain't going to do it. It's not my thing, you know. Don't like reviewing the albums, but this is a killer album. It's very important. A lot of the proggers out there will want to know what I think about it. It's really great. I do love prog, you know, and it's really great. And I love the sound of Jethro Tull. And they do all the things. I've said all that, haven't I? So what's your criticism of it, okay? Well, first of all, we are lacking the genius of that band. Now, it's Jethro Tull in the old days was not just Ian Anderson. They had Barrymore Barlow on drums. And Barrymore Barlow was one of the greatest drummers in rock history. Barrymore Barlow is the guy that John Bonham thought was greater than him, and that they actually considered for him to replace John Bonham in Led Zeppelin. That's the level of Barrymore Barlow. Martin Barr is the great underrated guitarist. There's so many of them in prog, but he does all sorts of things from acoustic guitar to incredible. And these are all signature players, not so much with the bass. You know, they had that John Hammond, didn't they? Or whatever his name was, you know. And the bass player's incredible, the keyboard players. But I feel that, especially with Martin Barr and Barrymore Barlow and Clive Bunker before him, there's a different vibe there. You have a band. Right? This doesn't feel like a band. It feels like Jethro Tull fans have made their way towards Ian Anderson somehow and joined this band. Now, on the album, I believe that what we have is the remnants of the old band and then this new band. So there seems to be two guitarists on here, and I think two keyboardists, I'm not sure, but there seems to be the remnants of the old band and the new band. And you can't hear any difference, because what you have here is not musicians like Barrymore Barlow pushing what rock music can do. You have people who know this genre inside out and play it really well. This is most notable for me in the guitar playing, because when the guitar solo comes in, what I can hear is, and he's a fantastic guitar player and he's very able, but what I hear is neo-prog guitar playing. You know, it's a culmination of Francis Dunnery, of Steve Rothery, of John Mitchell, and they all sound a certain way. And there's lots of fast stuff, and it's quite liquidy. There's a tiny hint of Alan Holdsworth, and it doesn't have the individuality that Martin Barr had that made him different from a Steve Howe or Steve Hackett or any other guitarist called Steve, because they're all individuals, and there's a lack of individuality in the band playing, right? One of the interesting things is there's the keyboardists, the two keyboardists on the album, I believe, are also playing an accordion, right? So we have an accordion on this, so it all goes a little bit French. I had it in a I went to say this, and I knew the Americans aren't going to get it, but this is for the British people. It's like Jethro Tull meets Hello Hello in certain places. There you are, English people. There's a joke for you. So imagine Jethro Tull in Renee's hotel, dodging the bloody Nazis. That's what they're doing. The Americans go, what is Andy on about now? So there's a French... There is actually, throughout the album, although it's dripping with the English aesthetic, right? It's got other music things in there, so it does make it slightly different. But one of the things about Jethro Tull is that throughout the 70s, they have a run of albums which I think are faultless. There's not many bands that do this. Gentle Giant's another band, but they do Giant for the Day. That's what I'm on about. But with Jethro Tull, from the first album all the way up to the 1980s, all the albums are great. I always thought they weren't, right? But they are great. You know, people going about Passion Play. It's bloody amazing. When they get to the 80s, Ian Anderson wants to move forward. And he does a lot of stuff that is really great. I actually went back and listened to Under Wraps and all these albums from the 80s. And I thought they're Jethro Tull, at that point, trying to keep up. But they are. It's just the sound of Jethro Tull mixed with that technology. Isn't the sound of Genesis mixed with that technology? And it's really good. But the fact is this is like what bands do from the 70s. They go through the 70s and they get to the 80s. Can't deal with the 80s, right? They get into the 90s and they just fall to bits, right? and then they're gone. Then the extra members go off and they drop down to slowly becoming legacy bands, and they put all their arms out. No one's really interested. And then somehow, at some point, they decide to get the name back or the band back. Right, and that's what we got with Jethro Tull here. I believe Martin Barr has been back with Ian Anderson on a few gigs or tours or whatever. I feel if you had Martin Barr in there, it really would raise the bar. Literally. The jokes you get in here, come on. You can't beat a joke like that. Why would you have Martin Barr back in Jethro Tull? I think he'd raise the bar. Of course he would. I've explained it twice for the Americans. Right, so I'm insulting everybody now. I'm enjoying this. So there's the arc that all these bands go through, and they always end up just becoming like the tribute band to themselves, right? In Genesis's case, it's Steve Hackett who has decided to carry the prog torch, hasn't he? Because when Steve Hackett is almost like the prog heart of Genesis, isn't he? It's the prog heart. And so he's out there with his own band, old Blundell, my old mate, on drums, doing a very good tribute to the Genesis progressive rock and his own catalogue. But that's why people are going, because they love Genesis. ELP, Carl Palmer is out because the other two are dead. And he's actually got like video projections of them. Right? He's got video projections of them playing. He sits there playing. He's in real life. But they're not. They're like video projections. They've got people playing it. And so, you know, Carl Palmer has become the torchbearer for ELP. Yes is a right bloody mess, isn't it? Because Yes is still going, aren't they? But Steve Howe wants to be the torchbearer of it, but he's not, is he? It's John Anderson. And that's why I loved the John Anderson album, because I love Yes. It's brilliant. And it got some balls. Right, we'll get onto that. We'll get onto balls in a minute, right? It had got some balls. It really does rock, that album, like Yes rocks. But I felt that the sort of little cheeky pixie that John Anderson is, right, under all that sort of love and peace, man, all that thing that John Anderson's got, there's a little cheekiness there, I think. He just wanted to show the real Yes, that they weren't the real Yes, and I loved it. It was mischievous. Mischievous it was, and he's having a little, I could imagine him having a little smile to himself. It was brilliant. And when it first came out, I hated the artwork, but there's time when I thought, no, I appreciate, you can tell I appreciate a little bit of a troll. And John Anderson, there's more bite to that little fellow than you think. He came on my channel, I couldn't believe it. I love the bloke, right? I hope he watches this. He won't, because I don't think he realised he was on my channel, to be honest. I think it was in a big list of interviews he had to do, and then he buggered off. But there's a bite to John Anderson, and you realise why he's one of the greatest frontmen in rock history. You know, when he's not the obvious Robert Plant, you know, Steven Tyler type, is the old John Anderson. But he's something else. He embodies prog, full stop. And Ian Anderson does embody Jethro Tull. But because of bringing in these sort of... I mean, these guys, in John Anderson's case, the people on the album are actually from a sort of tribute band to prog. And yes, that's what they are. Right, so these guys can play that stuff inside out. That's what they are. This is tribute band stuff. Now, last night I have had a first run through with a new band that I really wanted to put a band that can just improvise. I've got this great space, and I want to champion improvisation, and I want to champion it as being the way forward for music on YouTube. I want to make that point. And I've been trying so hard to find musicians that A, can improvise, and B, are willing to just have the guts to make mistakes. So I was playing last night with these two incredible players. You'll know all about it. Just keep watching the space. And they were amazing. But the bass player, incredible virtuoso bass player, he's called Steve Wilson. So I've got a guitarist called Brian Neal that I've known for a few years, and he's like a virtuoso guitarist, but channeling Eric Dolphy, Thelonious Monk, rather than, you know, the usual. Very interesting player. And whereas the bass player is called Steve Wilson. That's going to be confusing, isn't it? And I was going to review his. The next one I might do is the overview, the new album. But it seems like a heavy thing, so I am aware of it, and I feel I should be reviewing these prog things on it, and I will. I'm just saying, I'm here. I'm here doing Jethro Tull, aren't I? Calm it down, will you? Right. So I started chatting to this bass player. He's made his living, a really good living, out of tribute bands. Tribute bands are where the industry is, right? These guys can make good money, do decent gigs, and play great music. Tribute bands are still alive and kicking. People want to go and see them. I don't know how long it's going to last. And I feel at the top of the tribute band triangle of music, which is completely different to the triangle we had in the early 70s, the actual real prog, or even the neo-prog of the 1980s, which was sort of a do-it-yourself punk aesthetic. We now have this tribute band here, right? It's a tribute band thing. And at the top, if you go to the top of this, is the actual bands, but they're not the actual bands. But they're like top tier. They're top tier tribute bands. Ian Anderson has formed a top-tier tribute band to Jethro Tull. Okay? And I would argue that even if they got all the players back together, right? Because I think most of them are alive. So if they got Clive Bunker or Martin Barr Barrymont Barlow back in, you know, if they were to get that and put it back together, is it the fact that after a certain amount of time in this genre of rock music, you can't help but be a tribute band? That's the thought I had. I thought, is this the new Jethro Tull album, or is it a tribute album to Jethro Tull that Ian Anderson has made? Because that aesthetic that was alive all the way through the 80s, whether you love or hate those albums in the 1980s, that was a band that was still a band. That was a creative force. That is where you sat down and go, what should we do next? Now, it's troublesome, this concept is, because we could also say, well, about AC/DC? AC/DC is still going. They haven't even got Malcolm Young anymore. Brian Johnson can't really sing and hit the high notes anymore. Angus is still there. They'll churn out another album, maybe, I don't know. But have they become a tribute band to AC/DC? But AC/DC always sounded like AC/DC, didn't they? They always did. That's this spirit of innovation. Does it really matter? Is this a new Jethro Tull album? That's my point. Because I don't feel it is. I think the prog world, we're all like judging it, and it's amazing. If you like Jethro Tull, you'll like it. And it's got Jethro Tull on the front. It's got the name Jethro Tull, and Ian Anderson made it. But is it an actual, does it feel like a Jethro Tull album to you? And it's not Ian Anderson's fault. I'm not criticising Ian Anderson. He's a bloody musical genius, that bloke is. He really is. But is it the fact that you can't, there's a certain point when you're dealing with music that is 50 years old, that you just can't get back to that place. And so we're in the realm of nostalgia, right? And it's like, maybe none of us want to admit this, but me being a thinker, I can't help but see that that's where it's at. That I'm in my late 50s, I'm a little bit younger than the progressive rock audience. So a lot of you will be older than me. You would have been actually buying Minstrel in the Gallery when it came out, right? So you're a bit older than me. And this is the music that we all like, and in about 10, 15 years, it'll all be gone. We'll all be gone. And maybe there's a nice warm glow for some of you when you put it on, but when I put it on, it just draws attention to the vast amount of time between those albums that are like well over half a lifetime, if not a lifetime ago. And here we are, the dim shadow of that still remains like an echo of another time that you cannot get your hands on anymore. The dim memory, nostalgic film memory of a time that we all can go back to, but I can't, because I was in a funny place in the 1980s as an outsider, rejecting the popular music of the 1980s and going back to the 1970s because I believed there was something there that I found far more interesting, because I was really rejecting the sort of postmodernist Emperor's New Clothes aspects of music at that point, you know, and I wanted to really appreciate the talent. And at 15, 16 years old, realised that the music critics hated Jethro Tull. And there they were, trying their best to make forward-thinking music, but up against the music press that wasn't going to champion them. And so, you know that the enemy, if they bothered to review a Jethro Tull album in 1985, would be doing it with a yawn and a sort of knowing, sarcastic, oh, Jethro Tull have a new album out. You know, and that's 40 years ago that was going on. It did all the bands in. If you're the Rolling Stones, it never happened to them. Never happened to them. You know. And, you know, you watch Mick Jagger come out on the Oscars. He looks exactly the same, doesn't he? Leaping about like a bloke who shouldn't be leaping. I mean, what's he on? What are they injecting him with? Monkey glands? I mean, what's he on, Mick? He's bloody 81. His girlfriend looks about 17. Bloody hell, rock music. At the top of this thing, I copied Jethro Tull. If I brought some great players down here, right, got them in the room, and we did a Jethro Tull tune, but we wrote our own one, not a tribute band where you're playing the songs and pretend to be Jethro Tull, but you play something that sounds exactly like Jethro Tull. You basically copy it. Would you, Jethro Tull fans, would you like it? Right? Isn't that what all the other prog bands are? I'm into this shape on my face. I keep doing it. It's weird what goes through the head when you're doing these videos. Oh, you're getting too nonchalant, you are, Andy. Too nonchalant. Because I do so many. So when I first started these channels, I'm doing 3 a week. Like the candle app, but 7 a week. But you seem to like it, don't you? That's how you just got to expect that. You know, I spend more time talking to my bloody iPhone than I do talking to my own family. They keep moaning about it. Maybe I should do something else with my time. It's so that's not that 251. They don't have 251s in Genesis. You did all right at the start of the video. Then you forgot the bloody name of the album. What is it called? Curious Ruminant. I mean, a ruminant, that's what's in your stomach, isn't it? Cows have ruminants. How can you have a curious ruminant? Does it have another bit? And then it's got that sort of mask on the front, which is a bit eyes wide shut, I thought. I don't know what Ian Anderson's been up to. Anyway, I can't say much more on it. So what's my conclusion? If you're a Jethro Tull album, buy it and you'll like it. If you're a prog fan, check it out because this is well going to be in the prog top 10s and all that at the end of the year. But if you step outside it, the death knell is being rung. What's the answer to that? Right? Well, I think they've done a good thing of getting in the studio and playing because regardless of all this cultural mumbo jumbo as was spoken, there is nothing like a real band in the room, and I don't think that goes away, and that is what everyone's missing, and that's the great innovation of this album. And you can see it I read all the reviews and people say it sounds really organic because it's people playing. I would love to know how it's done. I would love to know if they played all at the same time or whether there was some consideration in the production of, you know, trying to get some sort of reality in there. In other words, they didn't use a computer to quantize everything, that they used the real drum sound, that maybe the drummer, I mean, you could go into a studio and you could have Ian Anderson with his guitar part and you can put the drum, I've done this, it's hard to do, but you put the drum track down first, don't click, to a guide guitar track, you know, live. And then you've got a drum track that's organic. And then you can drop on top of a drum track that's organic, you see. The modern production methods are killing real music. They just are. And this is why I think this album will be a success. And I hope that the big message of this, the positive message is that proggers, the death knell is ringing for this genre, right? If you want to reach people and you want to be different to what everyone else is doing, start playing your instruments again. And I mean real start. And that means stop fixing it in bloody Pro Tools. Stop re-triggering, stop programming, stop tuning stuff in, stop trying to make it perfect. I know you all work in IT, right? And you think everything should be in its right place, but it's killing music. And thank you, Ian Anderson, for knowing this, because you're the real deal from back 50 years ago, and you know how to make an album. That's what we hear here, and that's what I really enjoyed about this album. But the question is this actually a Jethro Tull album? Do we have to buy it? I mean, I feel that if you wanted to be a Jethro Tull album, this is a terrible thing I'm about to say, if you bought every album from 1968 through to 1980, and then that was it, you don't need any more. That's it, you've got Jethro Tull nailed. And that's the two things, that's what we've got going on here. I hope that's a decent review. It's what I think. And that's why I forgot the bloody album. That's why I'm going to leave that in. I can edit that out, but I'm going to leave it in at the start. I'm going to leave me forgetting it. Because in the end, in the grand scheme of things, I didn't remember it for a reason. Thank you for watching this video. See you on the next one.
But I just wanted to tell you about a few ways that you can support me here on YouTube and get access to even more weirder and wackier content. First of all, you could become a patron. You could become a free member or a paid up member. I have over 300 extra videos on there, and if you don't even want to become a member, please pop over, because you can access my collections where you can purchase even more weirder and wackier video content. If you want to support me financially with a little tip, buy me some biscuits or maybe some crisps, you could pop over to my PayPal tip jar. I also have a Substack where I have lots of clever, academic and thought out articles where I explain my ideas on art, culture and creativity in a more intelligent way than I do here, plus a whole ton of podcasts. If you want to know what my music sounds like, you can pop over to my Bandcamp. Over there, you'll be able to listen to over 50 albums, and if you want to access them all, you could become a subscriber. And last but not least, if you want to support the wonderful studio where I film these lovely videos, which is actually a charity trying to help people out in the community become more creative, here is the website where you could drop a few pounds or dollars or whatever the currency is in your country in there. Thanks for listening, and back to the show.